We now know the name of the ICE agent who fatally shot and killed Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old unarmed mother in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of that ICE agent is Jonathan Ross. And no, I am not doxing this ICE agent. No, I am not putting him at harm of physical, threats of any kind. It is the DHS secretary herself, Kristi Noem, who stated publicly, straight out of the gate, that the ICE agent who was involved in the killing of Renee Good had himself been involved in a vehicle dragging event just months ago, last year in 2025. That was further confirmed by other members of the administration. It did not take a lot of cyber sleuthing to figure out and put two and two together that the ICE agent who was involved in that vehicle dragging incident in 2025 and that the ICE agent who killed Renee Nicole Good is Jonathan Ross. Based upon sworn courtroom testimony provided by Ross just last month in December of 2025 in the trial of the man who was accused of dragging him and assaulting him, we find out some background about Ross. So let's get into the details now. And again, this is from Ross's own sworn courtroom testimony last month in December of 2025. Jonathan Ross testifying that he was deployed to Iraq from 2004 to 2005 with the Indiana National Guard. And I apologize. I got ahead of myself. The charges that the criminal defendant was facing, Mr. Munoz Guatemala, that's his name, Munoz-Guatemala, was arrested and charged with assault on a federal officer with a dangerous or deadly weapon. Okay. He went to trial last month in front of a jury. He was found guilty, convicted. He's pending sentencing. All right. So like I said, Jonathan Ross testifying he was deployed to Iraq from 2004 to 2005 with the Indiana National Guard. He served as a machine gunner on a gun truck as part of a combat patrol team. Ross testified he returned from Iraq in 2005, went to college and joined the Border Patrol in 2007 near El Paso, Texas. He worked there until 2015, serving as a field intelligence agent gathering and analyzing information on cartels and drug and human smuggling. Ross testified he served as a deportation officer based in Minnesota since joining ICE in 2015. 10 years, I guess, with ICE then. He is assigned to fugitive operations, which means he is arresting, quote, higher value targets in the ICE region that includes Minneapolis. He's a team leader with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Ross testifying during this trial that he is a firearms instructor. I'm going to say that again. Ross testifying that he is a firearms instructor, an active shooter instructor, a field intelligence officer, and a member of the SWAT team. He attended the Border Patrol's Academy in New Mexico. He learned to speak Spanish. Okay, so back in June of last year, June 17th, in the Minneapolis suburb of Bloomington, Minnesota, he was the leader. He was the team lead for a group of ICE agents who went to arrest a man who was in the United States illegally. These agents activated emergency sirens and lights, instructing Munoz, Guatemala, to pull over. Ross pulled his car diagonally in front of Munoz, Guatemala, to force him to stop his car. Ross and an FBI agent identified themselves as police officers, according to Ross in his testimony during the trial. They pointed guns at Munoz, Guatemala, who raised his hands. Ross then approached Munoz, Guatemala's vehicle and ordered him to put it into park. Ross ordering the driver to lower his window all the way down and warning that if he didn't, he would break it. Ross testifying that he used a device called a, quote, spring-loaded window punch to break the rear driver's side window, and then Ross reached into the car to unlock the driver's door. Let's stop right now and let's reenact this for a second. Munoz, Guatemala has stopped his car. I'm assuming the ignition is still on. It's still running. Ross has approached after pulling a gun on the driver. Ross uses a spring-loaded window punch to destroy, to break the rear driver's side window and reaches in to be able to unlock the driver's side door. According to the trial testimony, Munoz Guatemala drove off while Ross's arm was caught in the car, and Munoz Guatemala accelerated the car, dragging Ross down the street the length of a football field in 12 seconds. Now, that's pretty traumatic. That's a lot. Ross, though, this is interesting, and I want to stay on this for a second with you guys, so stick with me. Ross fired his taser, striking Munoz Guatemala with the taser prongs in the head, face, and shoulder. Munoz Guatemala was not incapacitated by the taser. Eventually, Ross was knocked free of the vehicle by force after the driver drove onto the curb for a second time and back onto the street. Jonathan Ross's right arm was bleeding. An FBI agent applied a tourniquet. He got 20 stitches at the hospital after suffering multiple large cuts and abrasions as well to his knee, elbow, and face. Ross testifying during the trial, quote, "It was pretty excruciating pain." Now, that was from WBUR.org, a local news affiliate. And that also was from the Associated Press. Now, the New York Times, also looking at the court records for Munoz Guatemala's case, acknowledging the same information I've just relayed to you. And by the way, 2 law enforcement officers have identified the ICE agent who killed Renee Good as Jonathan Ross. So there's no confusion about who it ended up being. Apparently, Munoz Guatemala is Guatemalan, who had been convicted of sexual abuse in Minnesota and was illegally in the United States. Now, further details from the New York Times says that Ross fired his taser at Munoz, and Munoz was shocked twice with the taser. And again, that the cut to his right arm required 20 stitches. Now, here's some details from the New York Times that WBOR did not have. Munoz Guatemala called 911 to say that he had been assaulted by an immigration agent. A phone call that ultimately helped officers find and arrest him about a mile away. Munoz Guatemala stating that he didn't know that was an actual law enforcement officer that was trying to stop him and take him. I mean, look, I do not condone violence at all. I don't condone violence against law enforcement at all. I am a former prosecutor. I am pro good apple law enforcement, right? I don't call for defunding the police, none of that. But there is a climate that has been created by ICBP and federal agents of fear among people, immigrants and citizens alike, right? Who undocumented migrants and citizens alike who don't know if they're being legitimately stopped by legitimate law enforcement because they're either masked or they're not wearing identification, right? I don't know the specifics about this with Munoz Guatemala's case, but I do know that that is the defense that was raised. And again, I want to make it explicitly clear, just in case people are not understanding me. I do not condone violence against law enforcement in any capacity. But I wanted to talk about this with you guys because I want to play for you what J.D. Vance had to say about ICE agent Jonathan Ross, the man who fatally murdered Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis. Take a listen to what Vance had to say because I have some thoughts about it on the other side.
What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile?
Okay. So J.D. Vance is basically saying, and it makes sense, right, that Ross would be kind of spooked, right, having gone through this experience of having been dragged with his arm being stitched up and everything, right? Did you ever stop and think, though, that maybe it would make ICE agent Jonathan Ross predisposed to being trigger happy and using his gun instead of his taser? Did anybody stop and think about that? Because in the instance where he's being actively dragged by someone, right? He uses his taser. He didn't use his gun, even though he had exited his vehicle with a gun when he initially approached Mr. Munoz Guatemala's car. He doesn't use the gun to stop Munoz Guatemala from dragging him 100 yards down the street. He uses a taser. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a betting woman, but I'm going to bet that if Jonathan Ross had used a taser in Minneapolis, Renee Nicole Good would not be dead. End of story. Finally, there's a vitamin company that understands women's specific needs. Because whether I'm dealing with aging gracefully or just trying to feel my best every day, Parallel has something specifically designed for where I am right now. No more generic multivitamins. We finally have daily powders from Parallel that do more than just the basics. Parallel's powder line is amazing because it's not just your typical protein or greens powders. These are doctor formulated with women in mind. But honestly, anyone could take them because you're getting multiple supplements in one thoughtful, amazingly flavored powder. And here's why I trust Parallel more than any other supplement brand. They're founded by an OBGYN and all of their ingredients are backed by research. Like you, I want products that are made by people who understand women's bodies. Parallel is the first OBGYN-founded vitamin company. Actual doctors who specialize in women's health created these formulas based on the latest research and their own clinical insights. We're talking targeted nutrition, folks, for every stage of a woman's hormonal life. Menstrual health, perimenopause, just daily wellness. And these powders, they include protein, electrolytes, sleep support, and greens powder. So here's an exclusive offer for all of you listeners out there. If you order right now, you can get 20% off your first order with the following code. Phang, my last name, P-H-A-N-G. New customers, 20% off your first order with the code Phang, P-H-A-N-G. Go to parallelhealth.com. That's PERELELHEALTH.com. PERELELHEALTH.com. So, ICE agent Jonathan Ross sounds predisposed to me because of the trauma that he experienced through no fault of his own, right? In that incident last year with Mr. Munoz Guatemala's case, he's predisposed to fear, to trauma. So he's going to use his gun. He's not going to use his taser. Here's another thing I want to point out to you. Did you notice as well in the videos from the bystander footage from the killing of Nicole Good, none of the other officers on scene, and there are at least 4 that we can visibly see in and around the immediate vicinity of Renee's car, including the officer, agent, who had his right hand on her door handle on the driver's side and his left hand reaching in. Notice none of them pulled a gun, none of them pulled a taser, none of them pulled a weapon. The only one who pulled a weapon was ICE agent Jonathan Ross. And this is after he was sauntering around the back of Renee's SUV, holding a cell phone, recording God knows what. Still haven't also gotten confirmation, people, that Ross's body cam was on and operational at the time. I think that question needs to be answered immediately. But of course, we're not going to get those answers if we're Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, because we've been booted and frozen out of the investigation courtesy of the feds. It's a whole other conversation. So ICE agent Jonathan Ross is in the back of the vehicle. There is new footage that has been released that we can now see that it is Renee Nicole Good's wife, partner, trying to get back into the passenger side of the SUV. Next to her is Jonathan Ross. Again, no exigency, no urgency, no fear, nothing. Even though that car is on, it is idling. Renee is in the driver's seat. She has now waved other cars to go ahead of her. And it is obvious that if her partner is trying to get into the car, what are they going to do? They're going to leave. They're not using the vehicle to ram and kill law enforcement. Okay, so Ross is the only one who pulls a weapon, and he doesn't pull the taser. He pulls a gun and he fires 3 shots, killing Renee Nicole Good. The other thing is this. If you're going to use and you're going to escalate to lethal force, the use of force matrix, and by the way, putting aside the violations of the training and the policies that deal with use of lethal force, you can use lethal force in defense of yourself and others for fear of serious bodily injury or death. There were no other ICE agents that were located to the right of the trajectory of Renee's SUV. What do I mean by that? Meaning it was just Jonathan Ross to the left driver's side front panel of the SUV and other ICE agents and law enforcement to Renee's left and to the back down the street. There were no other law enforcement agents down the street, right? So who is Jonathan Ross protecting when she's leaving? when Renee is driving her SUV with the wheels turned to the right away from law enforcement, when she's trying to get away because she's been ordered to leave, one of those, or more than one of those law enforcement agents, ordered her to leave. She was trying to leave. She waved, she moved her car forward, and then she got cut off by a departing vehicle, right? And then she was waiting. She's waving other cars to leave. She's leaving. So who is Ross protecting? He can't say that he was protecting other officers, and no one can't say that. Trump can't say that, and Vance cannot say that. Nobody can say that he was protecting other law enforcement officers because there were none of them down the way. I'm going to play one more thing that J.D. Vance said. Take a listen. I'll give you some thoughts.
Nobody debates that. I can believe that her death is a tragedy while also recognizing that it's a tragedy of her own making and a tragedy of the far left who has marshaled an entire movement, a lunatic fringe, against our law enforcement officers.
No. Not only did J.D. Vance lie throughout the entirety of this soapbox, ridiculous monologue that he did that was an insult to the intelligence of the American people, because we can believe what we see with our own eyes. But no, this is not a tragedy that was of Renee Nicole Good's own making. This was a tragedy with criminal and civil implications. The civil implications are a no-brainer. A civil lawsuit is a no-fucking-brainer. The criminal case, as I've mentioned a couple of minutes ago, now being significantly hampered because the U.S. attorney in Minnesota, say his name, Dan Rosen, Trump appointee with no prior prosecution experience whatsoever, no criminal experience whatsoever, right? This guy is now making decisions about investigating a police-involved or an officer-involved shooting. The U.S. attorney in Minnesota, Dan Rosen, and the FBI, the feds, the Trump administration, the Trump DOJ, they are freezing out the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I will tell you, though, the Hennepin County District Attorney, she has made it explicitly clear, and I want to read what she had to say because I think it's important for you guys to get some comfort in knowing this. Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County DA, saying that her office is, quote, exploring all options to ensure a state-level investigation can continue and that they're speaking to our local partners on paths forward. She's not giving up. Attorney General Keith Ellison from Minnesota is not giving up. The Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey not giving up. They are not giving up. We are not giving up. A fulsome, legitimate, clean, thorough investigation must be conducted of the murder of Renee Nicole Good. We owe it to her. We owe it to her family. We owe it to her memory. We owe it to transparency. And we owe it to the American people. Because then we just had a shooting in Portland, did we not? Let's talk about that very quickly, because that is just outrageous to me. Because, oh my God, look at that. Yet another allegation that, according to law enforcement, that a vehicle with a passenger of a, quote, Venezuelan illegal alien affiliated with the transnational Tren de Aragua prostitution ring. Border Patrol agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants. The driver tried to run them over. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired a defensive shot. The driver drove off with the passenger fleeing the scene. And yet later on, it took the driver of that car to call 911 for medical help because nobody bothered to call anybody for medical help. And both people had been shot. So the Border Patrol agent fired one defensive shot and managed to strike both of them. People. Nobody's going to believe what comes out of any investigation that's spearheaded solely by the feds when it deals with Renee Nicole Good's murder or when it deals with what's happening in Portland. The FBI claiming they're now investigating it. Please, 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 please. For the sanctity and the decency of this country, the state and local authorities must be partners in every sense of the word with any investigation that happens. Alrighty, people. Share this video, as well as the one I did yesterday that kind of did the breakdown of how Trump, Noam, and others continue to lie about the facts and the events as they rolled out chronologically on that date when Renee Nicole Good was killed. Subscribe, please, and make sure that we continue to get the truth out because the truth matters. I always say to you, knowledge is power. I am empowering you. We are empowered together. Be mad, be outraged, demand accountability. Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.